Okay, so can you guys see me? Because I can't see myself on here.
It's the same as it was last time. You're showing
Yeah,
up
you
fine.
can.
Ugh, that is so crazy how this is. I don't.
Okay, so welcome to our fourth episode of Round the Table with AOTR. I feel like things have been going pretty good. I've been thinking that we should possibly do a TikTok live like panel sometime and see what we can draw in that way and, kind of bring some more awareness in a different way. That was the newest kind of idea that I came out with. But today's episode, to go ahead and get started, is on how Project 2025 could basically damage author careers. Um, there's a lot that we can talk about, and how does this correlate to activism and civic duty? Um, but basically, I wanted to open up and ask you two what you have seen has been an immediate difference for you since the new election and since Project 2025 has been pushed a lot more. So, who would like to talk about that first? You
Mm.
or
Well,
you?
I can go first.
Okay.
So I think being a queer writer and writing queer stories, probably the biggest thing is people who, while my stories are spicy, there's a lot of queer authors that don't write spicy stuff, and we're all kind of being lumped in together as being pornographic because it's just because it includes queer characters. There's something inherently sexual about being queer, and the idea that the entire LGBTQ AI spectrum is somehow this big bunch of perverts, and it's just awful. Some of the comments I have had, I don't do ads right now because every time I have, they get awful comments from people who are just terrible people. And it's since Trump took office, it's gotten 20 times worse. And I hear things from other authors who have the same problem, that they try to run an ad and it gets review bomb, and then they end up getting review bombed. um, it's like it gave people permission to do the things they always wanted to do, and made it normalized that it's okay to hate these people because our leader does. And just like the people on, like, Goodreads is an example, because anybody can review on Goodreads. There are just literally these accounts that they target LGBT people and review bomb everything they've done with 1 stars. And there'll be accounts and literally with thousands of reviews, and they're all 1 star. There's no other review on their account. They just 1 star anything that is a queer work. And it's gotten worse. I mean, it happened before, but it's just gotten so much worse.
So, okay. What about you, Kendra? Or is there anything in particular that you're possibly a little bit concerned or worried about that could happen because of what you write and what's going on with politics?
Yeah, so my writing's kind of a mixed bag, as a lot of people know. Like I write, but pretty much what I preach in pretty much everything that I do is inclusivity, and acceptance, right? So, or in some stuff, rebellion. Um, so I mean, we all know what they've been doing with work in those areas for the longest time. So I've been kind of expecting this to go the way of where, like, I've been telling my husband, I said, I'm just waiting for some of my stuff to end up on the ban list somewhere, because this is the stuff that I write about. And of course, that's silencing everybody's voice. And then, like when you also write some stuff that's considered, well, not considered, is spicy, then it's just like people really double down on that too. So it's not even just the other stuff that I read about, but there's that in particular, and people just more focus on that to target. Um, And I mean, I definitely noticed that, like, because it's like Bev was saying, I have other friends too that write that same genre, and they may not have that spicy content, and some might, but everybody's getting lumped in together as, like everybody in the LGBTQ plus community is being treated like, I hate to say the word because it's just like how they're treating them like they're pedophiles, and it's horrible. And the implications, it's not just, it may start now with, the review bombing and the hateful comments, but that stuff has a tendency to escalate. And I mean, just talking to different people through the day, I've seen it, and it's not even just, with writers in particular, but everywhere. So it's not good. I don't see this going in a good direction over the next 4 years whatsoever.
Okay, so both of those things totally legit, but I'm a little
We
bit
can't
more
hear you.
concerned.
Hey, Sal, you're on mute.
I got it. So both of those things are totally, completely valid, but my concerns are a little bit more deep. And what I mean by that is arrest. They're talking about wanting to
Yeah.
convict us for essay offenses for what we write. And then that can totally change the entire course of your entire life. Because if you are convicted for an essay offense, even if, like, I live in Oregon, so this is a great topic for me. In our state, it's completely legal for people to go completely nude as long as they aren't doing something lewd or trying to elicit an erotic response. We have nudist colonies all over. People have come to Oregon and seen women topless on beaches and gone and ostracized them, and they have called the police and had to have the police tell them, look, you are the one that is harassing these people. If you don't like what they're doing, go to another part of the beach. Don't sit here and gawk at them. They're not doing anything illegal. We have a lot of hippies, and that's the culture, okay? We have a lot of hot springs. This is like you can go into any, and this is something to know. If you come here and you have a child, don't go to the hot springs and expect that you might not see something you don't want that child to see. You have to be aware of this. You have to be consciously aware about what you're doing and what you want your children exposed to everywhere in the world. This is just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are places where I would say that's not appropriate. It's totally, completely lewd behavior, but like I said, depending on what we're seeing, if we see someone pleasuring themselves in public, this is lewd behavior. So, okay, well, then we have cases where there have been people who had to use the bathroom and there was nowhere to pee. This is a big deal for the homeless community, especially. And this is incredibly important that we discuss it because somebody go out, find a bush, pop a squat. They're just trying to take care of business, and the world is being inhumane. And all of a sudden, here comes a security or ranger, and they're getting arrested and charged with lewd SA behavior for urinating in public. And they're not actually doing anything to elicit any kind of lewd response. All they're trying to do is not piss themselves. Like they've done everything they can in their possible human way to not do it in public, and yet someone has still come upon them doing that, and now all of a sudden it's an LEO and they're charged. And for the rest of their life, they have got to be put on the sex offender list. Even though they've not actually done anything to touch anybody, they haven't asked someone to do something to them that was, not consensual, nothing like that. But because of the way it's set up, okay, so if you are an author who has written and published anything in your life that can be traceable, especially on the internet, you are now at risk where you can literally be charged with a sex offense. And that will change the course of your entire life. You will never be able to do any of the things that you did before. And then, of course, that escalates, like you said, from people being arrested for reasons they shouldn't be, to police brutality, to people going on witch hunts and literally trying to track down and cause harm to people just because of something they wrote. And this is supposed to be a country where we have a First Amendment that protects us, but we can see that is absolutely no longer something that they are honoring. We are seeing politicians from every kind of walk of life. People are being arrested for what they're posting, what they're saying, what they're thinking. It's like Minority Report out the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And so, see, to me now, I'm like, well, I know, it's already out there. It's out there. I can't take it back. And honestly, I don't want to. I'm not ashamed of what I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any
Right.
reason to be fearful about what I wrote. In the country that I was raised up and believed I lived in, that was permissible. And with everybody getting so upset and up in arms about these different levels of librarians have to police what is going on in the library constantly, that they're not even getting to do what their job really actually is. Like they're being outfitted to be this incomplete, and that's not what they went into library sciences for. That's not what their purpose was. Their purpose is to teach and to educate and to help you learn how to navigate the system of a library,
Mm-hmm.
not to make sure that parents that don't do their due diligence, you know, are are being that their children are being parented by someone that's not responsible for it. Honestly, the reality
Mm-hmm.
is, yes, we do need to have things be age appropriate. I'm not saying put Penthouse over there with the children's products. Like seriously, there's some common sense here. But at the same
Right.
time, if somebody comes in and they want to go be able to find publications or periodicals that are adult consumption, maybe they're doing a report on something and they need to find things from 1960. A librarian's job is to help that person find it. It's not to ensure your child's not consuming material you don't think they should consume. That's your job. And in the setting of a school, again, age appropriate materials should be easily agreed upon when we look at a curriculum, and
Mm-hmm.
we can look at the things and go, okay, well, we know that this material that's being shown in Kindred by Octavia Butler is perfectly fine for seniors to be consuming, but we might not necessarily want a third grader to consume it because it's not age appropriate. They don't understand the concepts.
Right.
Like, you got to let them learn comprehension skill, and their reading comprehension translates to whether or not it's age appropriate. It's not just because of what the material is itself, it's because of the maturity level. It's all about maturity level. Adult products don't belong for juveniles. This is common sense. I
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
don't market my material that's like that to kids. I don't say, here, go read this. That would make me a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, but when you're selling an adult material to adults, they're consensually the consumer that's going in and paying for the product. Where the hell does the government come off thinking that they have the right to say anything about that? Because I guarantee you they're not going to stop consuming their adult materials.
Nope.
Oh, absolutely not. And they're still gonna go solicit on the street too, because we all know they do that.
The amount, like, it's funny, I believe it was Grinder app actually said recently that some of the politicians that are out here doing all this, that there's a threat that they might be releasing information of people that are out here anti-LGBTQIA, who are eliciting and soliciting services or relationships with people that fall under the umbrella because they're closeted. And you know I think this kind of goes correlation with what happened with Diddy right now, and this is how. So nobody would have gave a damn if that man would have came out finally and said, I'm a bisexual man. Nobody would have cared
Mm-hmm.
at all. They would have been like, oh, okay, kudos for you being strong enough to be a black man coming out and owning that. That's powerful. That would have been a statement. But instead, this was a man that was closeted, who dominated and obscurely hid things, who trafficked and abused and violated and lied and was sadistic and did terrible things to non consenting, capable people, minors. All of this, of course, is allegation because he hasn't been charged, but the amount of evidence and the amount of witnesses make it real hard not to feel that this whole thing, if everything they say is true, if everything is true, this man could have come out and done the right thing and never did any of those things and owned who he was. And everybody would have actually, the opposite of what has happened would have occurred. He would have been more respected. In fact, more people would have liked him, and more people would have probably been like, well, maybe I had this guy wrong. But no, That's what makes you a bad person, is when you take away consent, when you violate other people's rights, and when you try to frame how they should be, whenever you're sitting there and you're one of the primary people paying for them to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I
Exactly.
cannot wrap my mind around it. And then we have a president who sat here, who we know solicited work with Stormy Daniels. This woman has absolutely no reason to lie and nothing to gain. In fact, she has lost so much. I don't know if you guys have seen her documentary, but she has lost so much because of this. And people still act like, those of us who are coming out here and going, I don't understand why you're turning your targets on me. I haven't done anything. I pay my taxes. I do what I'm supposed to. I don't commit crimes. All I'm doing is creating my art and selling it to the consumers that want it, that are adults, all of which is trackable. We all know this. Like, and yet now they want to vilify us, and I don't think it's just about what we write. I don't think it's just about the idea of Puritan culture, purity culture as it stands. I think it's also to silence those people, because the people who already have the backbone to write content, put it out, be their genuine self, and be like, this is what's up, are the ones they need to silence. And the only way to do that is by gagging us through the one thing that gets us money. And that's why this is happening. It's not just because they actually want us to be purity symbols. They don't give a rat's ass about that, if you want me to be frank. Like, they would get us just as involved with them being dirty as they are if they could. Come on, make some money. That's the kind of people we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll try to take the fact that you wrote something like that, use that to entice you into the game, and the next thing you know, you're on Epstein Island. That's how it works. Right. And that's exactly why they put this in there, and they've written it, because the underlying truth is the people that are bold enough to be authentic and publish it are the kind of people that start revolutions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's the people they have to stop. Otherwise, they're going to have an uprising on their hands. And enough people rise up, sure, there might be casualties, but at the end of the day, who's going to be on top?
The people and the minorities, time after time after time, even though the boundaries and the barriers look impossible, if you look at the course of history, they always do come out on top. It's not that they don't lose in the process.
Absolutely.
But it's like the people at the top still have never realized this in all of this time, and all of the conquerings, battles, and wars that we've ever seen on this planet. And it's really such common sense. You do not win flies. I mean, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. You act like an asshole. You treat people like this, and you are literally, and that's part of the point. Part of all of this is assault, is attack, because they do want to fight. They do want to fight so they can justify what they're doing, to try to thin our ranks so that they have more control. And that's the nature of colonizer imperialism. And at this point, Donald Trump is not about the Constitution in the United States of America. He's about being a tyrant on top that has his thumb over everybody, who's going to do exactly what he says. And if you don't, you're going to be made an example of, and you're going to pay for it. And it might take some time for him to get back to you, but you do something. I promise you're on his shit list for the rest of all time until he gets his vengeance exacted. And we're seeing that all across the board now.
Wasn't it him that even said that, he wasn't sure if it was his job to actually defend the Constitution? He said that recently. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, like, come on, guys.
It's literally in the oath. I mean, all of these things. I had a talk with someone the other day, and it was over due process. And they were trying to tell me, the left is easily riled and trolled. And of course, I took offense to this because I'm an independent libertarian. I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not the left. I get really offended when I get lumped in with people that they think are just rabid and don't make any sense, whenever I'm more constitutional leaning than anything. If it's not constitutionally sound, that's the law of the land. That's what people make an oath to. It is not constitutionally sound. I don't care about either side of the damn row on that. That is the facts. If it's not constitutionally sound, it's not sound. There's no getting past it. If it's going to cause genocide or it's going to cause people, if we're funding people that are going to go do what we've done under both presidents for the last 2 terms, and I ain't going to, it's not okay. We had one president go ahead and send arms over there and do all this, and that was Biden. And now we got Trump doing what he's doing. Both of them together are equally culpable for the bullshit that we've done in Israel.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And people don't like it when I say things like that, because they're like, well, how does that make you feel about Kamala? I wanted to see a black woman be president. Any woman be president. Really.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. But do I agree with everything that administration did? Hell no, and I'll be the first one to say so, because that is what it means to be doing your civic duty. Our job is not
That's
to be
right.
like, oh, bravo, you're so great, I love you, everything is, oh, that's not our job. Our job is to constantly
Well-
be asking accountability questions.
Right. And the thing is, even the person that you vote for, you're not going to 100% agree with every single policy they want to bring to the table. It's just not possible.
No. And that's why you have to constantly. And I know people, I think that that's part of the problem, because even when he said, oh, if you vote for me this time, you'll never have to vote again. If you actually thought that was a good thing, you are fucking lazy. You are a lazy, un-American person. Because actually, the reason why we have voting every so often is because this is a constant. The founding fathers said that. This isn't just you get to do it and it's all good and then you get to go lay down and pretend like you ain't got a job to do. If you want your country ran right, you have to be present. You have to make the people that you elect do the things that they're supposed to do. Do their job. Not just take money and go and lobby for whatever and then have all their friends and buddies end up at Mar-a-Lago rich as fuck while the rest of us are struggling and starving. That happened because Americans got lazy. They stopped doing their civic duty and they started going, I don't do politics. This isn't about you doing politics. We know that. If you were the one that did politics, your ass would be a politician. And I
It's
hate
like
that.
if you look at the stats, I mean, only like 30-something% of people voted for Trump and 30-something voted for Kamala, and over 30% didn't vote at all. So, that's horrific, because
30%
we might not have been in this.
just dropped out. And a
position.
lot of them were like, well, it's because I couldn't vote for either side. Homie, I feel that. I feel that. A lot of people are pissed off that I won't deny I voted third party. I've always voted third party. I've voted third party every fucking election since I was old enough to vote. I have never seen eye to eye with any of the administrations or the offerings for the president since I've been old enough to vote. And that is because if you go look at their administrations and the types of things that they've done, that they've continued to feed the war horse on. Sorry, not sorry. We are the problem. We are taking money from our tax-paying citizens to go fund wars that are not even ours.
And that's been for as
My whole
long as
life.
I've been alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And that's why I go, if you fall into the red versus blue and that's all it's a cult, because either way you're going to get brainwashed and all you're doing is going along with a party's ideals instead of realizing a party's ideals don't always line up with you, because these are ran by people that have more money than you. Either way you go, more opportunity, more privileges, and they're never going to understand what it's like to be you. So if you're not there letting them know what it's like to be you, they're just going to do whatever the hell they want to.
They're going to do their own, they're going to line their own pockets. Unless we force them to do their job for the betterment of the people, they're going to just better themselves.
Because that's the nature that's the nature of humanity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's do what's best for you and screw anybody else. That's how it always has been.
yeah, and I can really go into this right now because my rental agency, I showed this to Kendra. My rental agency has been ripping me off, and I got my money back. But for like 2.5 years, they tried to tell me that everything I thought, and I kept telling them, this isn't right, this isn't right. They kept blowing me off, On May 14th, one of the women that worked for the agency was arrested and found to have embezzled $560,000.
Oh.
How dare you? And there are people still on the streets right now. It took me 4 years just to get into the 1-bedroom apartment I am now. I want you to hear what I just said. It's a 1-bedroom unit and it's a housing. They already know they're not even supposed to do that. I have me, my son, and daughter all here. We pay almost $1,000 a month for this place. It's and I just
Wow.
got to be told that somebody has been stealing over $500,000 while they tried to tell me that I was wrong this whole time. And guess what?
Wow.
They have repeatedly done things that make it look like they're trying to lease violate me, but because I know my rights and I fight no. I've let them have it many times, especially with this. I highlighted it. I was like, every single time, and there's so many different infractions. This happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. And y'all kept telling me that I was wrong, but I have all of this stacks of evidence, and now this comes out. And who's the person that gets treated with disdain? Who's the person they can't stand? It's not the person that stole $500,000 from them. It's people like me, the ones that are being stolen from. How dare I? How dare I come to their office and make them accountable? How dare I say something that they don't like? And the thing about it is, when you work in escalation, you can't expect to get somebody's respect if you keep doing things like that. You keep doing things like that, and they've repeatedly reported it. They've done their due diligence the right way. They're telling the truth. They're 100% transparent, and you still have the audacity to gaslight them and institutionally abuse them. You got another thing coming if you think somebody ain't going to call you the C word. You got another thing coming if you think somebody ain't going to put you straight. And guess what? The First Amendment protects that right. When the people say, oh, well, I don't deserve abuse, then why are you giving abuse? You get what you give.
Yep.
You get what you give. And so that's just to say I've dealt with a lot this last week. And all of these things overlapping are because we have a society of people that are so lazy or hateful that they can't see the bigger picture, that, you know, if you, and I really love being disabled and saying that because of able-bodied people and how they act about people like me. Well, if it's so rough, get a job. I do have a job. I work every single day, probably harder than some of you. And I still don't make enough to make what I need to happen. And the way that you have chosen to vote for things has made it to where I damn sure never will. No matter what I do. Unless I also become a multimillionaire, I'm fucked.
I mean, I went through school. I owe tons of money, and I still struggle. You know, even with a master's degree and a license. You know, it's, you know, you just can't get ahead. And I mean, I'll be honest, I just filed bankruptcy because of medical bills and some other things that had gone on that I also rolled into it. But, you know, it's like, how many people file bankruptcy every year? How many people get stuck in the cycles of taking out personal loans, of getting these predatory loans, you know, getting in trouble with having all these people say, oh, here, take $1,000, it'll get you out of the hole. Well, then you're taking out, you know, 6 more loans to try to pay off the first loan, and eventually you can't make the bills. And you know, you have that cycle that preys on people that are close to the poverty line because they make them so easy to get. And
and I mean, I used to work in the bankruptcy department for a deep subprime auto finance company, and I can't say how many people I talked to that filed bankruptcy because of medical debt. And the most jarring one was someone that I was talking to one time that told me that the reason they had to file is because they got brain cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no reason somebody who has worked their whole entire life, has, you know, voted, paid taxes. There's no reason that somebody who has done everything right their whole entire life gets sick and then should have to file bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrible. I can't imagine being that person. That's really sad, but it's unfortunately, I mean, and then people go, "What radicalized you?" The United States government has a pretty good habit of doing that to people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and now I begin to think that's their point, because the amount of psychological stuff that our country has studied, and the CIA and the different programs that we know that they've done, there's no way that they don't know that the what they're doing is going to cause pushback. That's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
This is totally, completely orchestrated. This is intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by accident. It's not because, oh, well, this is just, the collateral damage. No, this is targeted, intentional. Project 2025 wasn't just people being conspiracy theorists. This is what
Mm-hmm.
these politicians truly want to bring to this country. And now, because of that kind of mentality, we have a young woman, a beautiful woman, who has passed away and being kept alive, where her baby, if Adriana Smith's baby actually does survive, this baby is going to be very disabled, because the mother,
Mm-hmm.
being brain dead at 21 weeks, is not producing the hormones needed for the fetus to actually be able to continue
No.
to have brain growth. So
Right.
what they are outfitting Adriana's family with, the amount of medical debt, because they're charging her family to keep her alive, because the state won't
Mm-hmm.
let them do this. After the woman worked for the hospital that this is happening at, too. Um, and then if this child does actually live, the amount of medical care, the cost, um, they're outfitting this child to have a life of disadvantage under an administration that wants to penalize people that are disabled like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's even if they survive long term. Even, I mean, we don't know what the full ramifications of all of this is going to be for that child either. So, I mean, even if they do somehow make it to gestation and through gestation and then survive whatever birth,
Yeah, they
who
have to
knows what's going to
mutilate her
happen after
body
that?
to remove the fetus. They've already said they're going to have to
Yeah.
mutilate her.
Yeah.
So what her family's going to have to deal with post-mortem, because she is dead, with burying her, the desecration of her corpse,
Mm-hmm.
and if the child is born alive, which they're saying that the child has hydrocephaly too.
Mm.
But if the child is born live and viable to become a child, not just a fetus as it is now, because of what its medical incubator situation is, it's already going to be disadvantaged. And this family is going to be taking on a special needs child. The level of special needs, we won't know until after, like you said. But it is
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed with what is on the table right now. If any medical professionals look at it, they're going to tell you this child already has hydrocephaly. It's not getting added nutrients and hormones from a viable maternal source. We can't
Mm-hmm.
synthesize this the same way. They already know that. All of those
Mm-hmm.
things that child's going to be lacking, even if they do replace them upon birth, are not going to make up for the gestational lack. And I say that because I have had preemie babies. I've had 2 preemie babies, and I have 2 sons that are special needs. And the amount of care and the amount of money that it takes to take care of just one special needs child is astronomical. And if it was not for the fact that I've had things like Medicaid, SSDI, food stamps, my sons would probably already be dead, realistically, if they did not have the care that they have. And I know that from experience. And I know what it's like to see a child on life support, because it's happened to me. And this woman's not even on life support. She is dead. She's not in a coma. She's not still breathing on her own. She's completely lifeless. There is no spirit in her. They have to pump her constantly with something in order to keep this going. And her family's going to have to pay out the rear forever for it, likely go bankrupt. And still have to take care of the child that the government's telling them they have to take, even though they wanted to terminate. That's not right.
Not at all.
It's atrocious that this happened. But I will say this, so another person, before we go into our segments real quick, had a conversation with me about how Roe versus Wade was announced via fiat by the Supreme Court. And I said, yes, I recognize that, but the reason why was because of human rights. And they said, yes, but that's also where, the downfall came up. And I said, actually, it was, and I said it just like this, actually, that was their fatal mistake, because they never ratified it as amendment of the Constitution to make it a Bill of Rights. That was a fatal mistake, and the Supreme Court completely messed up, and that is the reason why they were able to repeal it. If it had been made and ratified as an amendment, we would not be where we are today. But it doesn't matter how many arguments we made. Puritan people who think they know everything and that their version of God and faith is the only way to be are willing to unalive and put other people's families at risk that are none of their don't even know them because of their beliefs. And if that is not the most unconstitutional thing in the world, I don't know what is.
Right.
Even if it isn't an amendment. First of all, we're supposed to be free to pursue our own happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness has been denied completely to these people. And so that, to me, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Abortion's not a right, but it should be. And under other clauses under the Constitution, it's preventing them from doing those three things. And if it does prevent those things, that automatically means it has to be allowed.
Right.
That's the way the founders set it up, and all of these people are totally disregarding that. Completely. But anyway, as per due process of what I was saying, the person told me that, only our citizens are under due process. And I said, no, that's not actually what it says. It doesn't even say the word citizens in the Constitution. It says persons under the jurisdiction of the United States are all guaranteed due process. So because we've deported and we've actually retained them under our jurisdiction, under our own laws, we say we have the right to take them because they're in our jurisdiction, right? We have the right to arrest them because they're there. That's what gives us the right to. On the same clause, making them part of our jurisdiction automatically ensures they're supposed to get due process. And the person was like, no, it's only for citizens. And I said, no, go read the Constitution. It says persons. Persons. That means anyone who is a person in our jurisdiction. That's also why they tried to change the terminology to illegal aliens, y'all, just so you know. That's a little tidbit people don't think about often. Because if they can dehumanize them to not being a person, guess what happens? There's the loophole that they don't have to give them due process. So, okay, but we're going to go ahead and get into Bev's mental health minute segment and see what she's got for us today.
Okay, so one of the concepts that, because I work with DBT a lot and on a daily basis, and one of the concepts that I really enjoy about DBT is this concept called wise mind. Wise mind is one of the basic foundations of DBT. And it's basically this idea that we all have a rational mind where we think logically, but we also have an emotional mind that can take over whenever we're highly emotional. And the thing is that you don't want to be entirely in either side to make good decisions, because, being purely logical with the absence of emotion, you're not going to take all the things into consideration that you need to. And then being purely emotional, you're going to make rash decisions, impulse decisions, different things that are going to lead to just a lot of regret and just things not working out for you. And the idea is that the kind of synthesis of these two is this concept called wise mind, where you are basically taking the best parts of rational and emotional mind and fusing them together to make good decisions based on all the facts from the logical side of your mind, and also tempering it with the emotional reaction that you might have to the situation. So you can make very well informed decisions, and you can make different ideas clearer, if that makes sense, by using the synthesis of both of these concepts. And a lot of people have trouble staying out of emotional mind, and it's far more likely somebody would fall into emotional mind than logical mind. I mean, there are some people that feel, like Spock, that they think like that they can, as if they can divorce themselves from that emotional side, which, like Spock, we know that's never entirely true. So but people do try. But emotional mind can just completely overtake us. And, it's like being angry and being so angry you can't think clearly. I mean, you can also be so happy you can't think clearly. I mean, those high levels of emotion need to be tempered by that logic. Like, you're really, really excited because you're in Las Vegas with your best friend, and then next thing you know, you end up at a drive-through marriage place because you're so excited you made the decision, a rash decision to marry your best friend. And then you got to deal with that afterward. But that's a decision made in emotional mind. That excitement was overtook everything.
Mm-hmm.
And anger is the one most people think about because, it's the most destructive. But you're so angry you punch the wall, you break your hand. You're so angry you punch a person, you get arrested. There's all of those are decisions that come from that emotional side. So if we can, as and humanity as a whole can learn from that whole fusion. I feel like that anybody can benefit from learning how to access both parts of their thinking, and learning that we are emotional beings, we are also logical beings, and we can take the best parts of each of those things and make good decisions and make calm ourselves down and do different things. And I really feel like the more people know about this concept of wise mind, and you can look on YouTube and there are tons of videos talking about it, and DBT in general, but wise mind in particular. And it just, when it's combined with stuff like mindfulness, you get kind of this reigning calm in your life that you don't have without those things. And I think right now what we need is a lot of people with the current issues. It's hard to not be emotional, and making those rash decisions even about this things that are going on now can lead to problems down the road if we're not thinking them through. So you may decide, oh well, they're going to do this anyways, so I'm just going to give up and I'm not going to try anymore, or something like that. And we've got to use the logic, and we've got to use that emotion and combine those two ideas and really learn to think through both the logical consequences, but also the emotional consequences. What's logical is not always the best answer, and what's emotional is not always the best answer. So, it's, we just need to really encourage people to look more into the concept and, see if it resonates with you. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But, it is a concept that I think a lot of people could benefit from.
Well, thanks for sharing. That sounds like something that could be really helpful with personal accountability and
Mm-hmm.
checking in with your authenticity, because mindfulness as it stands is something I try to practice often, but also
Mm-hmm.
being introspective, especially when it comes to like the moments of exuberance and how that can lead you to behave, or the moments of lividity and how that can lead you to behave. Being able to really check in on what your coping skills are in those moments and taking a
Mm-hmm.
step back and accessing what you have can help you make, a proper decision or keep you from making a devastating choice. And that is
Mm-hmm.
something that if we learn to do that and we add that to those tools, we'll be that much wiser. And if the objective is to try to be your highest self, to heal from all the tendencies of behaving irrationally and getting yourself into a higher elevated state that might be, like anxiety provoking. Like, I get shaky when I get really upset, like really shaky. I don't like getting that way. I don't like the way it makes my stomach feel. It makes me ready to fight, or I'm gonna run. That's it. It's fight or flight, and it's immediate. So it took me a long time to be able to, on the one side, I had a lot of avoidant tendencies, and some of that came with like rejection sensitive dysphoria, which I still kind of struggle with. But there's a lot of things within that I have dealt with through therapy in the last 8 years, that come back to what you're saying. I want to be wise mind. Like, I want that. I want to be sophisticated. I want to work and understand that to be a whole human means I need to be able to balance my emotion and my logic. Otherwise, you're counterbalancing either side of yourself. You're not gonna stay buoyant. You're gonna sink. That's what happens if you don't learn how to balance.
Now, if only everybody wanted to be wise mind, that would be.
It would
ideal.
be great.
Yeah.
It would be great. I mean, just think about the amount of brain power all of us could actually open within ourselves if we did more introspecting and working on building us into being our best selves. And it doesn't give you much time to go beating down other people's monuments because you're too busy erecting your own.
That's like, knowing yourself.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, Kendra, how about you give us some green thumb updates? What's been going on with you?
So I don't have a lot right now. The garden's doing amazing. I have some sweet alyssum sprouts there. I mixed the purple and the white together, and those are finally coming up. I've got this one lonely carrot still that I don't know if I'm going to actually get a carrot out of it, but it's still there, and I'm trying. The peas, I'm telling you, the peas are doing great, the ones that I planted with my son. I even took him outside the other day, and I was like, hey, look, buddy, pea pods, because we have pea pods, and I'm really excited. But he was like, walked away to go get in the bouncy house, because we have a bouncy house that we bought for his birthday, and it's much cheaper to buy one than it is to rent one. So he was like, yeah, whatever, bouncy house. Off to the bouncy house. Yeah.
When it comes time to harvest, maybe he'll be interested more.
Maybe, because then I'm hoping that, because he's got this book, How to Say Hello to a Worm, and part of it is they talk about planting peas. Like, oh, we don't have any pea sprouts. What pea sprouts yet? Shh, the peas are sleeping, and it's really, really cute. And then all of a sudden they get pea pods, and they open it, and it's got the little peas in there. So I'm hoping that he'll make that association with that book that he really, really likes, and then he'll get excited. My strawberry plants, I had one that was looking a little sad, but it was the one that I got out of my intelligent planter that had a really, really awesome root system that unfortunately did not survive being taken out of the machine. But it's trying. It's really trying. I have a new flower on one of them, as well as a teeny tiny developing strawberry. So I'm really excited. I've been getting blueberries off of one of the bushes like crazy. One's not really producing anything yet, not really doing much, but I think it just needed some time to bounce back from being in the pot at the store. That probably needs a little bit more attention. So I'm planning to see what I can do about making sure that it's producing as well. I've been looking into, and this is kind of what I wanted to get into more, space saving gardening ideas, like if you don't have a huge yard, because we've got a decent sized yard, but not a lot of it is usable for these purposes. So I've looked into hanging plants, like certain vegetables do really well with growing in a hanging thing that like they actually grow upside down. You put it in, the root system is up on the top and they grow through the bottom. So I have some hanging baskets that I plan on doing some different varieties of tomatoes, some peppers and stuff like that. So that's one way that I plan to save some space because we can hang them out on the deck. They come with these really, my husband bought some really amazing, like huge, gigantic hooks that we screwed in. So we have a couple out on the deck, screwed out there, and then we put some inside our little porch to make sure that when the weather's really bad that they're not getting drowned, so we can move them. But another space saving thing, and it's one thing that I've been wanting to do, just have not been able to do it yet because it does require maybe another raised bed or two, is vertical growing. So if you really want to grow something that takes up a lot of space, like let's say watermelon, pumpkins, stuff like that. Even some people grow their own loofahs to make their own sponges and stuff like that. Vertical growing is a great idea. They'll take the is it cattle, like cattle fencing. It's really cheap. Make a trellis out of it and like grow the actual plant in a raised bed at the bottom of it. So it has somewhere to climb. And then, of course, you have to make sure you're supporting the fruit once it's actually growing because it's going to fall right off. You're going to get nothing out of it. So, but there are a lot of different things that do well with that too. So I've been thinking about doing a lot of different things to try and help save space. Because having pots everywhere is not always the most space saving thing. I've got pots out on the porch that are just getting in people's way right now. So been trying to look at more things to do so we can save some of that space because we don't have a lot. Our house is really small and the yard, like I said, can't put raised beds everywhere. So have to figure out different ways to do things. Another thing that I was planning on doing, and maybe a good idea for some other folks that may not have a ton of space outside, but maybe have a deck. I saw it on a show. I can't remember the show right now, but it's this woman that lives in Georgia and she goes and helps people turn their backyards into actual functional spaces. So they don't just have flowers, and pretty things to look at that, but they're also growing vegetables, greens, herbs, different things that they can utilize and actually to be more self-sufficient. And this is what we're here for, self-sufficiency. So her idea that she had was absolutely wonderful, and I actually want to do it for a bunch of herbs. You can actually get these, I don't remember exactly what they're called, but they're like these big pieces of fabric and they have little like pots sewn onto them that are made out of the same fabric. And you can actually put them up on the side of your deck, just like hang them up on the side of your deck and just plant stuff in them. And apparently they do really well, herbs especially, because they don't take up a lot of space as is. They don't require a lot. So that's another way to save some space too. If you've got some space that you can use for that. It's definitely something that I intend on doing, and I would highly suggest it for anybody that has some space issues.
Awesome. Thanks for giving us that advice today.
Absolutely.
Sounds like you're really doing some great stuff over there.
I've put a lot of thought into it. I haven't been able to put everything into practice yet because that takes time, and of course, like most people, we
Right.
work.
Right, of
And
course.
you work and Bev works and everybody works and has something going on in their life to where they don't necessarily have a ton of time. So just trying to do what I can where I can and get the ideas going so then I can plan on the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Well, okay, I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible because I know that we're kind of running low on time now. But anyway, today I was going to talk about my computer's, like, my browser's being a pain, so I'm probably only going to be able to get a little bit of it up here. But anyway, I was going to talk about police protests and the inequity of police response to racial justice demonstrations. And I feel like this is really important because the administration just announced, especially with what happens as it pertains to George Floyd and his case, that they're no longer going to be pursuing any kind of help with police accountability, which is important for protesters to know, right? But anyway, this particular story that I found was by two researchers. One of them, his name is, or her name is Sandia Kajipita, and then we have Daniel K. Johnson. And basically, this is about the amount of people that were harmed during the protest season of 2020. In the United States, there were well over 7,000 public demonstrations for racial justice across more than 2,400 locations in all 50 states at that time. Arguably the largest protest movement in the nation's history. It was even bigger than the civil rights movement, actually. People often don't realize that, but it really was. The amount of people that got out there on the streets was amazingly huge. And again, it was because of something being caught on camera that everyone who's seen it was instantly angry about and operating in their emotional mind. And some points, I think that, logic was there because everybody was like, logically, we have to fight this. But a lot of it was based just off of that emotional reaction from what they seen, and that's valid because it was heinous. But basically, an overwhelming majority, an estimated 93% of racial justice demonstrations in the summer of 2020 involved no violence, property destruction, or road blockades. That means only 7% can be considered violent. And of that 7%, we had some bad things happen, like Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. And even that example of how it was handled, we had a 17-year-old with a semi-automatic weapon in the middle of a protest area. That there's no justifying that needing to happen. Like, that's just not something that needs to be happening. But police responses to protests varied widely, ranging from no presence at all to mass arrests, indiscriminate use of projectiles and chemical weapons, rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper spray, and driving police vehicles into crowds of protesters, nearly running people over at times. Yes, they are that crazy. Those types of police responses served as yet another example of the very police violence that protesters were calling to end. So the whole reason they were out there was amplified by that 7% of acts that were done that showed how crazy that they are willing to go, how badly trained that they all were, that they would literally be being accused of something that they have done, and their response is to do the very thing that is being called to stop doing. That is the kind of country that we were living under during a Trump administration the first time, and now he has completely done any kind of police accountability. I want you to understand how scary that is for all of us. Any of us now could become George Floyd, is what I'm telling you. So you need to be very aware of that. You need to be very aware of your surroundings. You need to be aware of the presence of the officers in your vicinity. You need to be looking at badge numbers. You need to be trying to get as much identification as you can on those people. And you need to be watching them like they're watching you, because if you're not hyper vigilant, they're going to come up and accost you. I promise you that they will. During the summer of 2020, there were thousands of public demonstrations about other issues besides racial justice that were intersectional, such as related to COVID-19 pandemic measures, labor movements, LGBTQIA rights, political candidates, support for white nationalism, and more. This presented a unique opportunity to study how police response to protests may have varied depending on the issue being presented. They found striking disparities in police response. Is anybody surprised by that? I mean, honestly. At racial justice demonstrations, police were more likely to be present. They are on brand, you guys. More likely to have escalated presence, which includes riot police already in gear, state police, National Guard on the ready. Just because you were there, because you were anti-racist. Think about that. That in and of itself is systemic racism proof. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And more likely to escalate their response to include arrest, projectile, chemical weapon compared to any similar demonstration that was unrelated to racial justice. That's bad, you guys. And I'm not going to go into all of this, but I will probably be linking this PDF into the YouTube commentary section so people can go back and read it for themselves, because it's a great report. It's from the Thurgood Marshall Institute, and it tells you everything you need to know about the way that they work. And with what I said earlier, you need to understand that Trump now, under this administration, part 2, is on a retaliatory regime. He wants vengeance for what we did, standing up telling him, you ain't gonna do this to us. That is what he's on. And he will try to say that that's Trump derangement syndrome, but you know what? No. Nobody's deranged when they're sitting here looking at what you're doing. The deranged person is you trying to tell me that I can't see what I can clearly see.
Right. Hell if he wasn't proving it, every single time.
Right? And, it's just, yeah, the right to free speech and assembly is supposed to be protected as one of the first amendments, and it is constantly being, assaulted left and right. So that brings me to the next part, which is Amnesty International. Global protesters were increasingly maimed and killed by police misuse of rubber bullets. Yes, you heard me. There's greater availability of less lethal, quote-unquote, weapons, which has led to the rise in the use of force against protesters, with huge increases in eye injury resulting in blindness. And also, if you get shot in the eye, you can be killed. Just in case people don't know that. There were more than 440 eye injuries during the 2019 protest in Chile, while some countries are using military-grade weaponry against their protesters. So they say that they're less lethal, but yet they can cause life-changing, disabling situations, and they can be fatal. So how are they less lethal? Again, I will also be, giving this PDF or this link to everyone to look at and to be able to see what I found here. The UN-backed torture-free trade treaty and 30 different organizations have called to prohibit the manufacture and trade of inherently abusive kinetic impact projectiles and other law enforcement weapons, and to introduce human rights-based trade controls on the supply of other policing equipment, including rubber and plastic bullets. Patrick Wilkin, Amnesty International's military security and policing researcher, quoted as said, legally binding global controls on the manufacture and trade in less lethal weapons, including kinetic impact projectiles, along with effective guidelines on the use of force, are urgently needed to combat an escalating cycle of abuse. And now, again, this is related, this particular one they cited to begin with on Chile, but the overlap is, the point is these are dangerous and they can, they can cause you to lose your life. So finally, because we've definitely ran over time tonight, I'm going to do a real quick touch on our recap for refilling the creative pot. And this one is about how nature inspires creativity. Basically, I've kind of talked about this before, like going on walks and hikes and things, but this is by Postcard Cabins from January 12th of 2023. It's a couple years old, but it says, feeling stuck in a rut and out of ideas, maybe Mother Nature has a solution to your lack of imagination. People who don't identify as creatives are often caught in a cycle of repeating phrases like, I'm not creative, or I don't know how to draw. Effectively, they become stuck in that mindset. So if you never go out of your element to try, you will never be able to succeed. That is a fact. A good way to combat this pattern of thinking is to actually remove yourself from your own everyday routine for something to give you a new perspective. Shifting your routine, where you go, how you spend your day, off time and weekends can be a key way to inspire a shift in creativity. As creativity is oftentimes described as making or discovering previously hidden connections, it makes sense that diverting from your daily routine could help you to do just that. Whereas city life can be swamped with patterns, ruts, and cycles of doing what is expected, nature can be a powerful source of creativity and the unexpected. A 2012 study explored the consequences of more time spent with media and technology over nature and found that backpackers who spent a few days hiking showed higher levels of creativity in a word association test than before they immersed themselves in nature. So that is an important key to keep in mind. We are creative beings when we go out and we find things to inspire us. That sparks innovation. That sparks us to become inventive and to actually use those parts of our brain. And the impact of nature on creativity was actually a study among Danish creative professionals, and I'm going to link a article from Science Direct that talks more about that. But some highlights from it real quickly are: nature can enhance creative ways of thinking. Nature helps with recharging directed attention needed when developing ideas. Nature especially plays a role in preparation phase and the incubation phase of the creative process, and the perceived restorative dimensions of nature, space, and serene are important for creative professionals. So essentially, we're a natural organic being, and when we're involved and immersed in natural and organic settings, we tend to connect with them, and then we want to contribute and create and do something to stay connected to them because of how it makes us feel. It literally translates to a better circadian rhythm, and there's so many different things that it does to help us. So that's what I had for us tonight. So it was good to talk to you guys. You want to say anything to close up shop, or are you good?
I think we're good.
No, fantastic. Yeah.
All right, well, it was good to talk to you, and our next recording will be in 2 weeks. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. I have to get back to the drawing board to decide, but I really think it would be fun for us to do a panel Q&A one night, and we'll have to get together to decide when to do that on TikTok, as I think it would be a fun endeavor.
Sounds good to
I
me.